All right, guys. So 2 days ago, we talked a little bit about starting pitchers and their grades and how this works. We're going to look at relievers here today, and Skeetersoft should be relatively straightforward, but we'll see. You never know. This stuff sometimes can get a little confusing. So the advanced pitching rules for relievers work pretty much the same way as starters. You have a base grade for the reliever again. Again, there is an A and B chart. We don't have to worry about it because it's all electronic. It depends on which season you're playing with. For the reliever, you do get the same type of setup. So for grade 15 with a Q of 2, you have basic grade 1 through 4A, 5B. Now, this number is not the number of innings, rather it is the number of batters. So the reliever will start off as an A pitcher against 4 batters in this case. Then when the 5th batter comes up, he automatically is a B-rated pitcher. And if he gives up 2 earned runs during any consecutive 9-out period, 3 innings, his grade is reduced by 1 letter grade, and it applies only to earned runs. So let's say the reliever gives up 2 earned runs before he faces his 5th batter. He is then reduced to be a B pitcher. Again, Cyrus, you need a proofreader. If he had already been reduced to a B, as in he had already faced his 5th batter, and then he gave up the 2nd earned run, he'd be reduced again to a C. But the earned run rule always takes precedence over the base grade rule. So what that means is that the base grade rule will not apply in this case. If he's already at a B and it says he's a B, he doesn't suddenly become a C, he's then a B. So basically, in this case, if you have Bob reliever and the 2nd batter hits a home run, 3rd batter hits a home run, he's a B. He gets number 4 guy out, and then for the 5th batter, you're supposed to lower his grade. He's already a B. You don't lower it to a C. You keep him a B. However, if he was, batters 1, 2, and 3 make outs, number 4 it's a home run, he's an A, and then once he's turned to B automatically for number 5, if he gives up another home run, then he becomes a C. That's the way it works. A little bit arbitrary, but it does add, as you can imagine, just a little bit more flavor to the game, and a little bit more sort of a strategic, a little bit more strategizing, as the pitcher is basically sort of like a deteriorating product as the game moves on. Now, whether pitchers actually deteriorate like that after giving up after giving up earned runs or not is a completely different question. It's kind of up to your interpretation. That's the way that it works here, right? There's also an adjustment rating here, just as there was for starters. Remember, the adjustment meant that when you hit a certain inning after giving up a certain number of base runners, you would lose a grade. For relievers, it's similar. So if you have a certain inning, then you give up a hit or something similar, we'll go look it up, then you lose a letter grade. So in this case, the adjustment rating for a grade 15 Q2 relief pitcher is 8HH. So the 8H means that once he hits the 8th hitter, the 8th batter, his grade is reduced 1 letter grade for every hit he allows, down to D, of course, which is the bottom. Each hit is cumulative and does not have to be in the same inning, right? After the first reduction with each additional hit, further reduce the pitcher 1 letter grade. It's not going to happen that often, right? You're not going to get a bunch of guys who get that far who are A and B and have to go all the way down. So let's say the reliever has not given up any runs and was reduced to a B when he faced his 5th batter. He then gives up back-to-back singles to the 8th and 9th batters. After the first single, he's reduced to a C, and after the second single, he's reduced to a D, right? So you can see here again, it's kind of a combination of the fatigue system and of this grade system. It's put together in a way that I would say is pretty creative, and it actually does work pretty well. Now, there is a cutoff here as well. So for a grade 15 Q2 relief pitcher, the cutoff rating is 10B. So the 10th batter means that he's reduced to a D pitcher. Proofreading, guys, we need a proofreader. That's the way it works, basically, right? It's very automatic, when the game comes along. We looked at this before, the pitcher grades, but we do want to look here now at the advanced pitching chart for relievers. And as you can see, so again, most of the relievers you're going to see are going to be in this like 7 to 11 type range, no matter what season you use. That's kind of the way it works. And so you can see here that, for Q3, maybe you get a little bit of B for a couple of batters, and it doesn't last so long. Q2 lasts a little bit longer. In Q1, which is better, it will last quite some time. And then your cutoff range is usually around 18th, 17th, or here the 16th hitter, which means you can use them for a while. I would guess that this cutoff range up here is probably higher, probably a little bit lower than down here, because a lot of these guys are prone to overuse, right? because you have a reliever who comes in like as a 28, so he's an A and B, right? You're probably thinking, oh man, I'm going to use this guy all the time and just have him come in after one inning and just pitch and pitch and pitch. Not very realistic. That's kind of the way that I interpret this, right? You do see a bit of it here too with the other grades, whereas with the starters, who you notice have more Q ratings, they don't have that variable cutoff. So that's kind of the way that it works. We'll go ahead and take a basic look at, see if we can find this here, at some teams and their relievers. Here's one, Rube Crow. So what happens is you'll see guys with a starting and a relieving rating, especially in 1908, because guys did both. The difference is not their base grade, but rather it's in the Q rating. And so this tells me this guy didn't last very long at all, and he didn't, of course. He pitched in 2 defensive games, 2 games, 1 game started and pitched 12 innings, right? So, I mean, he probably had like 1 mostly complete game and then 1 long relief outing. At the time, it wasn't probably seen as so long relief. Chick Fraser, meanwhile, has a Q1 as the starter, which meant he went deeper into these games he started, but as a reliever with a Q2, he probably wasn't going that deep. So that's the way that you interpret this and you read this. If you're doing a draft or if you're trying to figure out how to put your team together and you don't really care about looking at the stat book or you want to do it like total old school way, that's the basic way that you would read this rating. Now, the other stuff you see on Chick's card, the W, the M, and all this other stuff that we have seen come up, we'll talk about next time. So we do have more to talk about when it comes to pitchers, but this is a real quick introduction to starting versus relieving pitchers and the idea that goes on behind it. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The right way to manage in Skeetersoft is to manage the way that managers managed in the season that you're playing, right? Don't try to gamify the system too much because you'll get a headache. You know, I've played this game for a long time. Instead of trying to like do different things to try to force this guy into winning or something, you know, do the best you can to rotate guys around, give guys their playing time, and then be realistic about it, right? Sometimes you do have to use a guy who's got, where's the charts here? Sometimes you have to use a guy who has, a reliever rating of like Q2 and then like a 2, right? It happens. So he's a C for one batter, D for the next, and then you don't worry about the cutoff after that, obviously. When you have to do that, right, you don't freak out. You don't say, oh man, we're going to lose. Just let him pitch, because sometimes he'll be able to get out of a couple innings, and it'll surprise you, right? Don't worry about it. Don't overthink it. Just manage normally. But this way you kind of know what's happening underneath the scenes or behind the scenes. I'm going to be honest, this needs to be rewritten for both of these. I would actually love to rewrite this for you, Cyrus, if you watch this. This needs to be proofread and written so that it makes a little bit more sense. This is not a particularly good explanation. Heaven forbid that there's a board game that has a bad explanation, right? Anyway, there you go. Hopefully my explanation has helped you a little bit. Next time we're going to look into some of those other symbols that pitchers have, and we'll see what happens with that. Until then, I'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.